And Jon Wilner has done an amazing job covering it over the years. He's back with us right now on Jon and Jim San Diego Sports 760. So, first of all, Jon, we appreciate the time. Secondly, for those that haven't been following, like it's been a half year since those Mountain West schools joined this new look Pac-12. Like, what's the latest here? Since those expansion efforts from about a half year ago, Gonzaga in the fold, Utah State as well, what comes next in this saga, so to speak?
Yeah, well, not much has happened in the last 6 months. The Pac-12 has been looking for a media rights deal that would start for the 8 schools. It would start in the summer of 2026. But what they're trying to do is kind of attach it to the upcoming football season, so that Washington State and Oregon State would have their games on in the fall. I think that they're going to probably end up with something here in the next month or so. The most likely scenario is that they're going to have multiple media partners, so they're not going to be all in with a single network, and it's going to be a deal where, there's probably some over-the-air network, a little bit of cable, and then some streaming as well. We'll see which networks end up signing up. I think the CW is probably a pretty good bet. I think Turner, since it lost the NBA, may be looking to add some college sports and maybe ESPN as well. But there could be any kind of combination of 2 or 3 networks that end up with the rights to the Pac-12.
Yeah, how creative do you think they're going to get here? Because if you're saying like maybe multiple media outlets, it sounds like if they can't get that big one singular media outlet, that they're going to have to try to get as creative as possible here, right?
Well, I think that they would like to have their preference is to get multiple outlets. Okay. And that's what most conferences have. The Big Ten's got 3. Big 12's got 2. The ACC and SEC are both all in with ESPN, but having a variety, and the current Mountain West has got CBS and Fox. So having a variety is not a bad thing. The creativity question is very interesting because in a lot of ways, the Pac-12 is, starting over and starting from scratch with a media deal. So they could construct something where, they're playing different days of the week a few times during the season. Whether it's Sunday or Monday, Friday. I think that they've got that option, and then they're going to try to break it down so that they have some linear exposure. That's the biggest thing, is you can't become irrelevant. And if you're only on streaming, even if it's giving you more money, you can become irrelevant. So I think that they're going to try for the CW and or Turner, ESPN, Fox as kind of the anchor for the football season. And then basketball, we'll see. That they could get creative there too. And we don't know how many more schools they're going to add, right? We know they need one more football playing school, but they could decide that they want to add 2 or 3 that don't play football and play basketball and focus a lot on basketball. So we'll see, but I think we'll have a good idea here in the next few weeks.
Jon Wilner Hotline with us right now, San Diego Sports 760, Jon and Jim, and kind of on cue because you wrote about this today, this idea that, well, money matters, but exposure matters. Which matters more right now? You just touched on this. You think it's exposure. Are those the conversations that are happening right now in the Pac-12 office that, yeah, you might be able to get more, but to what end is it worth to get more money if you're not getting the coverage you're seeking?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. They are having that conversation. I mean, it's one of many strategic conversations that they've got to have. They're sending out bids for their content, and they may not get exactly what they want. Optimally, you get the most money and the most exposure on linear television, but they're probably not going to get that. They're probably going to have to choose which way to lean. And I just think, whether each school is making $8 million a year or $9.5 million a year, that's still like 30 or 40 million behind the major conferences, right? So it's on the margins. But if you're not on linear, then you're not being seen. You're not being talked about on social media. You're not being talked about on the studio shows on Fox and ESPN. they can't disappear, right? It's a hard enough battle with the rebuilt Pac-12 just based on the schools that are in there, right? They're not the blue bloods. So it only would get worse for them if they are majority streaming, at least for football. I think they have to have their football game of the week has got to be on over-the-air television. And to me, the CW would be the most likely candidate. And I think that's fine. CW is in like 100 million homes, right? People will see it. It's putting your best football game on, a streaming platform behind a paywall that I think would be disastrous.
What are some schools that are candidates to join the Pac-12 in basketball and football, in your opinion?
Well, I think Texas State, at least the way I view it, Texas State is got a pretty good shot to get in at football. There's still a lot of talk. Could they add Memphis and Tulane, South Florida? But I don't think that they're going to have enough money to lure those schools because those schools are already making $9 or $10 million a year in media deals. So the Pac-12 would have to come at them with 12 or 13 or 14 million to make it worthwhile, given how much more they're going to spend on travel if they're in a Pac-12. So to me, the American schools are going to be tough to get. I think Texas State makes a lot of sense because you want to be in Texas. And there still could be some Mountain West schools in play, right? The complicating factor and what turns it into like 5-dimensional chess is the lawsuits against the Mountain West. One is the poaching penalty lawsuit that Pac-12 has filed. That's over $55 million in penalties that the Mountain West says it's owed. And the other is the exit fee penalty that Utah State, Boise State, and Colorado State have filed against the Mountain West for like basically $20 million a school, and they don't want to pay all that. So you put it together, and there's like $100 million almost at stake between the schools of the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. And if the Mountain West doesn't collect what it thinks it's going to get, it won't have enough money. It won't be able to make the payments it promised to UNLV and Air Force last fall. And then who knows what could happen. The Mountain West could, dissolve. And in that case, the Pac-12 would have its pick of some of those schools as well.
John, is that part of the timeline then in terms of media rights and expansion to wait on these, I don't know, are there mediation efforts between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West? Does that need to be resolved before the Pac-12 resolves what's coming next for it?
I don't think so. So they are talking about mediation. They have not, to the best of my knowledge, decided on a mediator and entered into mediation. The Pac-12, I think, is going to wrap up its media rights deal before the poaching penalty lawsuit is resolved. And that could take months, right? I mean, if you think back when Washington State and Oregon State sued the departing 10 Pac-12 schools in the fall of 2023, I mean, they had like 8 or 10 sessions of mediation that lasted, I want to say, 3 months. So we don't know how long if they do mediate, we don't know how long it's going to go. And the Pac-12 can't afford to wait, 2 or 3 months to get a media deal done. They got to get moving. The thing is that none of the schools that they could add are going to materially change the value of the Pac-12 package. So they can kind of go to market and talk to the networks and get a number, even if they don't know what the final membership structure is going to look like.
That makes sense. John, final question from us here, and we appreciate you taking time, is even if you add a Texas State, that would be the 8th football playing member, which is the requirement, and that could work. But then you're looking at maybe 7 conference games and 5 non-conference games, at least initially. Does that make sense? Again, maybe it works in a short term, but like would Texas State, in your opinion, be paired with another Texas school for things like men's basketball travel or other sports travel?
I think that ideally that would be the case. I actually have looked at this. It's from Denver to Austin. Texas State is like between Austin and San Antonio. It's in a booming area. It's 2-hour flight from Denver to Austin.
Gotcha. It's
not ideal. I think they would prefer to add another Texas school, but I just don't know how realistic it is. the 7 conference games is kind of a problem. It's expensive to schedule non-conference games. I mean, the FCS schools, they know that there is a supply-demand calculation that is in their favor, and they are charging a lot of money for some of those non-conference games. One option would be to set up a deal where you actually played one team home and home. So like one year, San Diego State would play Colorado State home and home. The next year they'd play Boise home and home. That kind of gets you an 8th conference game without having to spend the money for it.
That's interesting. Jon, love the insight and the reporting. Again, for our listeners, you can check it out. Wilner Hotline, just great insight for our listeners here in San Diego. So thank you for doing it. We hope to have you again at some point soon, but thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks, Jon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great stuff. Jon Wilner. Wilner Hotline. All right.